Bienvenidos and welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol, the place where we discuss all things USMNT y la selección mexicana. My name is Adrian. I'm joined once again by my co-host and tocayo, Adrian. Adrian, what's going on, man?
Dude, what a delight to make this episode today. Huge news for the USMNT, but I'll let you tell them to the PPG Nation out there.
Yeah, man, this episode, exciting episode for all our USMNT fans who've kind of been starved for news here. Obviously, the biggest talking point coming from the USMNT camp for the last week has been a new number 9 has committed to the USMNT. Folarin Balogun. He's officially, said that he's going to be playing for the country of his birth. He filed for a one-time switch from FIFA, from England to the USA. So we'll be diving into that. Uh, Kind of diving into as well a rumor that's been going around, kind of confirmation that Jesse Marsch is pretty much set into the USMNT coaching job. We had an episode, if you haven't checked that out, kind of discussing what he brings to the table and what to expect from him, previously recorded. We'll link it at the end of this video. But it's pretty much done. We'll go into that, not as in depth because we already had a full episode out of it, but we'll give kind of our thoughts on to what we can expect from Marsch there. And we're also going to be discussing the 60 massive roster that Anthony Hudson dropped for, initial roster for the Nations League match against Mexico. 60 players, the maximum you could
Jeez
register.
Louise.
Yeah, he probably just invited everybody, man, at this point. Um, so let's get into it, man. Balogun, Folarin Balogun is officially a USMNT player. What exciting time for USMNT. They officially, do you think, have their number 9? Does he start automatically against Mexico?
Dude, what a blessing for the USMNT, man. They have the gun signing with them. That's huge news, man. Huge news. I mean, I think you and I we were discussing on previous episodes that if there was one area in the USMNT roster that lacked depthness, was the number 9 position. And by the first time we discussed that till today, I think George Sargent and Ricardo Pepi have been putting up a good display for the second half of the European seasons, right? You and I were speculating about Folarin Balogun, the gun, joining the USMNT, and if he, you know, were to join or was to join, uh, if he deserved to be the starting, striker. And to answer your question, I think he does. I mean, I understand that Ricardo Pepe has had a stellar second half of his European season. George Sargent is putting up some good displays at the championship, which is still a great level of soccer to be playing at. But I think Folarin Balogun is the right now is probably the USMNT player with the highest ceiling. I think before him it was Gio Reyna, but right now this is an undeniable truth that he is the prospect with the highest peak to be achieved. He is, a top scorer in one of those top 5 leagues in Europe. On his age rank, right? I think he's the one with the most goals in all European competitions for the, I guess on 20 or under 21 player. So I mean I expect him to be the starting 9 against Mexico in the Nations League, but I also would understand if he's not starting just because he hasn't had the time to adapt to the actual game style. But as I said, if he is the kind of player that we expect him to be, then the expectation for him, like the the build up that all the fans will have for him is it's going to be different. The hype is real, and he needs to show up to the challenge.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know if I expect him to start against Mexico just because I think it comes a little too early for him, not having played with the team much. He might come in as a sub, 60 or 65th minute, 70th minute, especially if they're losing. The USMNT is losing. Um, I mean, he'll have a couple days of training with the team, and he'll definitely be there for sure. I mean, we saw that he's been called up to the 60-man prelim roster. Um, but you talked about the hype that the U.S. fans feel right now. imagine that hype if he were to somehow score the winning goal against Mexico in the Nations League
Dude.
final. Like he would go down like as a legend already on his first game.
Yes, he
Um,
would.
but
Jeez.
you brought up some stats there. He's also the first American player to get 20 league goals. The previous most was Clint Dempsey, who had 17 in a top flight European league. It's interesting his story of how he moved to the U.S. or he filed his switch to USMNT. A couple months ago, he was in Florida when it was time for the I think for the Continental Classico when they were training for that.
Hmm.
Um, and he posted a picture outside a bar in Florida, and no location, no nothing, and people somehow like USMNT crazy fans were able to find it on Google Maps and kind of use their detective skills and say, "Oh, this guy's in Florida. He's coming to the U.S. He's coming to the U.S. He's committing." And Balogun came out and said, the fans on Instagram supporting him, making him feel wanted, making him feel at home. His talks with Tim Weah, with Yunus Musa, with Anthony Hudson. Big props to Anthony Hudson, by the way, man, who's
Big
making
time, yeah.
himself a if it's not settled that Jesse Marsch is the coach, I mean, Anthony Hudson's kind of making himself a contender for sure. But all those guys, Weah, Hudson, Musa, kind of, and the fans had a huge role in his recruitment, and just the fact that the USMNT, that they're in a good place right now, way better than they were in 2018. Come off a decent World Cup run, and you see what's in front of them. They have Nations League final that he's going to go straight into, possibly play the Gold Cup. Though I read somewhere that Antonio Hudson's going to play nothing but a BC player, so I don't think he'll play there. But then you have Copa America next year, and then a guaranteed World Cup. You don't even have to qualify for it. So that all plays a role into him saying, "Hell, man, like I could go be number 9, um, starting number 9 for a team that's going to play Copa America, that's going to play World Cup, that's going to play Nations League in the final, and I'm only 21." I mean, it's
Big stages, man.
yeah, big stages to kind of announce himself and kind of the hype is here, the hype is real. Let's see if he can deliver, man. Big shoes to fill for a 21-year-old for sure.
Yeah, big time. I mean, I don't think well, I don't think he's gonna. I hope that he becomes the next Captain America for sure. Although we all know that right now that's Christian Pulisic. Uh, well, you think it's Ty Adams, but I think it's Christian Pulisic. But he can definitely become, that go-to player in the attacking side of the USMNT. He has everything in his hands to make that happen. It's up to him to become a reality and not just be a hype of the fans. He's very young. He still has a long ways to go. I just really hope that he can put up with the. Uh, I mean, I was gonna say scrutiny, but there's not a lot of scrutiny in the USMNT soccer world. Not as much as in Mexico.
Right.
um, but I think he made the right decision. I think he made a good decision where he's going to be in a place where he's going to feel wanted, where the fans really want him to be here. He's also going to be in a stage where, while there's some pressure to make sure that the USMNT gets into the next stage, it isn't as overwhelming and difficult to deal with as if it was to be called up by England, right? The competition is fiercer in England, so he has a chance to make a huge mark with the USMNT if he decides to be uh, that player that the hype is bringing him up to, or bringing him up to expect.
Yeah, interesting about England here. It's right as he made his announcement, a day later, it was announced that I can't remember his name, but there's the player that's ahead of him, that was ahead of him in the
Hmm.
English roster. So it's Harry Kane, and then it was another guy. I can't remember who it is, and then it was him. And so he kind of felt that he was too low on the roster. Maybe
Oof.
there was like two other guys, right? And but one of the guys, the guy that's behind Harry Kane, got injured. So I mean,
Uh huh.
maybe you never know if he had waited a week, Southgate may have said, "Hey, I need you now," and
Dude,
kind of
and
tied him.
it's funny that you mentioned that. I also read that I cannot remember the name of the player. PPG Nation, if you know it, please put it in the comments. But uh, that guy got injured, and I think the youngster who was ahead of Balogun on the England roster, also got suspended for I think 8 months because he has something to do with some gambling on Premier League. So
Yeah, so he
yeah,
could have maybe jumped up to like right
uh
behind
huh.
Kane. Yeah.
The timing was perfect, man. I think Tony Hudson did a great job on the recruitment side of things. I mean, we can say a lot of things about Tony Hudson. Maybe we don't really like his style or whatever, but he's a great asset when it comes to recruiting. He's doing his job, and the timing of things is critical in this kind of situation. So, all kudos to Tony Hudson, man.
Yeah, speaking of Antonio Hudson and the USMNT coach, I mean, we kind of talked about in the intro to this episode. Jesse Marsch is kind of being mentioned as the head coach. I know a lot of y'all had in our previous video talking about Jesse Marsch, y'all's comments and y'all's opinions on him. Very strong opinions that
All
you guys
right.
did not want Jesse Marsch.
Uh huh.
It might be like we say for the Mexico episodes, pan con lo mismo. It might be the same thing. They might be hiring again an American coach that has experience with MLS and USMNT and has ties to USMNT. Is he probably the best USMNT or American coach? Probably, but I mean, they brought in their new sporting director, and not even a month ago, and he's already committed to Jesse Marsch. It seems like kind of odd. You would have expected more noise, more interviews, more people coming out and saying, yeah, or Fabrizio Romano coming out and saying USMNT has approached X candidate. USMNT, there's been none of that. It's just Jesse Marsch, and so kind of gets you wondering, did they learn anything? Are they really like interviewing anybody else? Or are they just settling for, oh, Jesse Marsch is out of a job. He has experience in Europe. Let's give it to Jesse Marsch. So yeah, kind of pan con lo mismo.
No, I agree with you. I mean, once they named this guy that came from Southampton, you would expect that he would have a bigger network to cast a net, right? And start interviewing people who might be a good fit for the USMNT. I don't think we were. I mean, we have our intention, or I guess our intention or our preference would be to have a big name coach coming to the USMNT, right? But we also know that uh, the USMNT, while it might be attractive, it might not the USSF might not be looking for that specific big name to opaque what the USMNT really is. To me, this seems like the USSF settled on Jesse Marsch. They knew they wanted Jesse Marsch, and they were just trying to put all the pieces together of the puzzle so Jesse Marsch couldn't say no, right? They found a guy that wanted Jesse Marsch at the club level, like this guy from Southampton. I can't even remember his name. Um, so they went, they went out of their way to hire this guy to make Jesse March more comfortable, to feel like, hey man, we want you here. We want someone who believe in you, who wanted you at the club level. So why not just make the right choice and come home and coach the USMNT? So it feels that way. I'm just like you. I'm still. I don't want to say I'm a little disappointed, because I think you and I kind of sort of came to a realization that yes, Jesse March was going to be a, if not the only candidate, but the strongest one out of the U.S. Born or U.S. based
Hmm.
coaches out there. Um, but I guess this is just it, man. I mean, Jesse March it is, and we'll just have to take Dogma Ball.
uh, Shout out to that guy that comments on our videos there.
Thank you,
He knows
dude.
who he is. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and just to clarify, the sporting director Matt Crocker, his name escaped me as well there. And they got him, somebody that wanted Marsh at Southampton, and now they got him a good number nine. What else? It's like you said,
Exactly.
it's panning out for welcome back to the USA, welcome to the USMNT. So we'll
Hmm.
see if and when that's made official. I'm hearing rumors that originally it was going to be after the Gold Cup, but now they're saying it might be announced before the Gold Cup. I don't know if that means that March will take over for the Gold Cup, or if they're just going to announce it. Antonio Hudson's going to see it out to the end of the Gold Cup, but we'll see. Um, Speaking of the Gold Cup, the other tournament this year or this summer, the Nations League, the roster dropped, the initial 60-man roster. No real standouts or omissions or big omissions that weren't due to injury. Obviously, we have Tim Ream out because he was injured,
Hmm.
stuff like that. But it's basically like we said for Mexico. It's the Nations League squad, the A squad, with the B and C squad from the Continental Clasico / Gold Cup. The previous 60 players that he's called for the last year and a half, that we've seen
Yeah.
constantly time and time and again. I'm not going to go through
Hmm.
the list just because it's so many players, 60 players. But I mean, you have
The 60 players, man.
yeah, you have your typical, goalkeepers. Zach Steffen is back. You have Matt Turner. In the defense, you have Aaron Long. You have DeAndre Yedlin representing MLS. You have Sergio Dest, Julian Gressel. Your typical guys that you would expect. Walker Zimmerman, Anthony Robinson, midfielders, Aaronson, Kalen Acosta, Tyler
Joe
Adams,
Scally.
if he's back from injury. Joe Scally, yeah. Yunus
Hmm.
Musa. And then I think the ones I would like to say, just because it's such an important position, forwards, he's called up Paul Arriola, Taylor Booth, Tyler Boyd, Jesus Ferreira, Matthew Hoppy, Jordan Morris, Ricardo Pepe, Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Josh Sargent, Jonathan Pifak, Brandon Vasquez, Tim Weah, Haji Wright, and Alex Sendejas. Literally every forward possible he could have called up. Uh,
Yes.
and I didn't mention one name that I left out there, Balogun.
The
So
gun.
Balogun is one of the standouts here, and I also think somebody I didn't mention who's a defender who's back for the first time in like 3 years. John Brooks was also called. Those are probably my two standouts.
Damn.
So maybe John Brooks just got called in because Tim Ream's injured. And I think who's the other center back that's also injured? There's another. I can't remember his name, but
Beaker.
Vickers, Carter Vickers,
Yeah,
yeah.
Vickers.
So
Hmm.
maybe that's why they brought in Brooks, but we'll see if he makes the final squad, or at least makes the Gold Cup squad. It'd be exciting to see him back.
I mean,
Um,
you'll have to choose him over Aaron Long, dude. Come on, man.
hey, I mean, Anthony Hudson has made some good choices, but I don't know if he loves Aaron Long for some reason, man.
He
Just
does,
like
dude.
just like Triple G did. Hopefully we saw the end of Aaron Long at the end of that big mistake he made.
Yeah.
The Intercontinental Clasico. So maybe that's the end of his career there, which we'll see. His USMNT career.
Fingers
Um,
crossed.
before we wrap up this quick episode, man, were there any standouts for you? Any standout omissions?
No stand up omissions. I just wanted to mention Timothy Tillman from LAFC. Just like, I mean, we talk about dual nationals and whatnot, and the gun being the biggest one, but Timothy Tillman also requested a FIFA change from Germany to the USMNT. So, uh, yeah.
Yeah, one that got overshadowed big time by Balogun.
Yes.
Rightfully
I mean,
so. Yeah.
exactly.
So yeah,
And
man. Sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
just sad that Brandon Vasquez. I mean, I'm just sad that Brandon Vasquez is now officially not playing for Mexico. I mean, he's probably gonna get called up for Gold Cup, and that's gonna be it.
You think he could have?
Disappointment.
You think he could have started for Mexico? I mean, he would have been down the
I
line
think
there
so.
too.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would have a good chance, a fighting chance, to be called up by Mexico and play. I prefer him over Alexis Vega, that's for sure. Um,
Honestly, I think
but
he would
man,
have had more of a chance to play for Mexico now that Balogun's here. I mean,
hell
because
yeah, man.
he's probably like number 7 now in the list or 8 behind
Yeah, he must be behind even Jesus Ferreira.
yeah. I mean, behind Josh Sargent, Ferreira, Morris, Pepe, Balogun,
Jordan
at
Pifog,
least.
yeah. Haji
Yeah,
Wright.
yeah,
No,
Jared Haji.
he's not. Yeah, he's not gonna start, dude.
Yeah, especially since he now cooled down in MLS. He hasn't been on
Hmm.
as hot as he was. Um, But yeah, I mean, we're gonna make sure you stick it here with PPG because we're definitely gonna be giving our full in-depth roster breakdown when the full, official roster is slimmed down and we get the 23 or 26. I can't remember how many he's able to call up for the game. But once he releases the final roster, we'll be definitely giving our thoughts, and we're excited for that match because it's gonna be Balogun's first match with the USMNT and a clásico
Debut.
and an official clásico, not one of those internet song
Hmm.
classic content clásicos, whatever.
Molero.
Yeah. So excited for that. And Adrian, as we wrap up here, man, where can our listeners find us, dude?
They can always find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast on. Lastly but not least, you can also find us on Instagram and Twitter at Puro Pinche Gol. We post stuff every now and then.
Yeah, make sure to follow us and make sure to comment below. Obviously, if y'all gonna talk crap about Jesse Marsch, go for it. We love reading those comments. We find them
Yes.
hilarious. But
Uh
also let
huh.
us know what y'all think of the roster. Are y'all excited for Balogun? Like everyone seems to be right now, rightfully so. Do y'all think he'll be the USMNT savior in the number 9 position? He's 21. He could be the number 9 for the next 10 years easily. And
Yeah.
there's rumors that he might be going to AC Milan. So that'll be a step up for
Damn.
him. So yeah, let us know
Yeah.
your thoughts on these busy week for USMNT. Adrian, another great episode with you, man. I'll see you in the next one, brother.
Take it easy, my friend.
See you, man.